Hello, everyone. This is our first installment in our speaker series, and it is an alumni of KSUIF and Kent State University. He is currently not in Ohio, he's down in Florida, and he's growing his career film adjacent wise. My name is Samuel Tessier. I'm the head of organizational outreach at KSUIF, and I'm proud and honored to introduce our first guest who will be having a workshop today about low budget filmmaking. That is Jeremy Herbert. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I
How?
can't, I hate to be that guy, but I cannot hear you at the moment.
Oh, shoot. Uh, Everything's good on my end. I can hear you fine. I'll. Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right, now the trick is how can I hear you?
Can anyone hear me in the chat? Michael, can you hear me? Shoot. I'll leave and come back. Hello?
All right, that did it.
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone, but we're back on the right track now. It's me and Jeremy discussing low budget filmmaking, former KSUIF and Kent State alumni, currently in Florida, trying to accomplish some things down there. And he's going to teach us some things about low budget filmmaking. Jeremy Herbert, how's it going?
Not bad. Warm. Lightly employed.
Lightly employed.
As many people watching probably are.
Are you staying busy with your filmmaking wise adjacent career down in Florida?
Yeah, filmmaking, yes. Me and my writing partner Wolf Stahl are hashing out the next feature script. We've written 2 and then potentially a couple more shorts for friends of ours to be made as soon as safely possible. Been sending more stuff out to festivals as I can afford it. Doing a lot more freelance writing for various theme park and movie sites. Enjoying air conditioning. That's about it.
Yeah, for everyone watching right now, Jeremy's mantra and production label is D-Day Films. That's on YouTube and Twitter. So if you want to check out some of his uh, trailers and some of his proof of concepts, those are on YouTube right now. And you can get a taste of what his style is. But this is low budget filmmaking. And Jeremy, do you want to introduce us to your idea of how to make a film on a low budget?
Ooh, you start with a softball question. All right, so the way I want to kind of come at this is start to finish, novel concept, I realize, just to work through what decisions you should make when. Now, if you're making a movie, I'm assuming I'm talking primarily to college students. If you're making a movie with the intent to send it somewhere, you kind of got 2 options. One is the film festival route, which is what I've done. The other is YouTube, Vimeo, etc., hoping that they generate hits. I don't say that one is better than the other. I just know the one. That's what I'm going to be talking about. That said, if you're going to make a short film, first, good luck. Second, think real long and hard if you want to do that. And third, if you're going to do it, good luck again. What you got to realize, and I know this is kind of hard. it's hard to come by film festival experience in college. And I paid my dues having to unlearn certain things, because in college you can kind of do what you want. Like if an assignment is a 12-minute movie, and let's say 5-minute movie, and you hand the professor, a 12-minute movie, they're probably not going to like ding you that bad for going that far above and beyond. If you make, let's say a film festival has a 30-minute upper limit for short films. If you send them a 30-minute on the nose short, you're probably not going to get played too many places. The kind of sweet spot for a short, everyone has a different opinion, but I would say 15 minutes is a responsible ceiling. I say this as someone who's now broken that 3 out of the last 4 times I made movies, only to my detriment. I want everyone to realize this. This is going to be a discussion of a lot of do as I say, not as I do. Aim if 50 minutes is your upper limit, to a point. If you're having trouble fitting it in there, consider either doing a feature or another idea. Ideally, you want to hit around 10 minutes. And it's may sound odd that I'm talking to you about this now, because we've not even gotten into, how to use a camera. I'm not going to tell you how to use a camera, by the way, so good luck. But everything about the process, the editing, the distribution, the film festivals, everything starts the second you open a blank script. And God help you type your name under a little "by" on the front page. That's when you kind of start determining how well your movie's going to do. So let's talk about writing, because again, this is all a game. You could have the greatest idea in the world, and it could be 40 minutes long, and it's going to be a hard sell for a lot of film festivals, because let's do some math. If a shorts block is about, let's say, 90 minutes, let's take an average length of about 9 minutes for each short, some longer, some shorter. So you're up against 10. Now, if yours is, let's even say 36 minutes, or 27, we'll do 27. What you're kind of making the festival do is weigh your one against 3 9-minute shorts. The second you try to understand how a festival makes decisions, you've lost the game, because it's people, it's organizations. They're not out to get you. They are festivals. They make decisions. Do not email them angry that they did not make the decision you would have liked. Be very gracious if they do. But this is the math that they have to work with. So when you start writing, you're already thinking about economy. The other catch, if there are 10 shorts in a block, I don't know how many folks out there have sat through a full shorts block. It can be the best shorts block you've ever seen. Every short, world class. And I guarantee you, by the end, your brain will be slightly soupy, because you're seeing full stories, 10 fast in a row, sometimes more, with credits and everything. And there will be that moment when you walk out and you say, I really like that one. And you'll remember a part of it, but you won't remember the name necessarily, or you won't remember, well, where did it play in that block? I know I saw it. And that's kind of what you have to fight. Now, it sounds like I'm telling you how to game the system. What I want you to take away from this is the trick to low budget filmmaking from day one to getting it played is it better be a cool idea. And I don't necessarily mean an excuse to do one take with a Steadicam rig. Those are great Steadicam operators. You're doing Lord's work, but this has got to be an idea that's unique, that might not play anywhere else in the festival. There have been some festivals where you see 3 or 4 that start with the exact same event, varying production values, and they go different ways. But a woman alone hears a knock at the apartment door. Okay, well, that's a lot of people have done that. A lot of people have done that very well. That shouldn't be the point where you think, well, yeah, but no one's done it as good as me. Think about something, be very honest with yourself that you've not seen before, that you'd like to see, um, that you would not mind talking about, you know, let's hope dozens of times at film festivals thereafter. Um, something
So
that
you're
you believe.
saying either have to be the best at something or do something completely new, right?
I don't know if I'd say. Well, there is no best. I guess that's the thing.
Well, take it,
Um,
yeah.
and this is my advice. You can take it or leave it. I think if you're already in that dead heat, you have an idea, and you're already saying something like it's been done before, but not this way. You could roll those dice, and you could easily end up with something that to the public eye is not as good as the one that's come before. Or you can take a little more time and really think about what's something unusual. What's something I cannot easily think of an analog for. Um, and there's wiggle room. The thing about Beecher's Gate, which is the short that played a bunch of places, and thank goodness, because now um, we made a lot of friends and a lot of talented people got to see it. Um, it starts basically like a Assault on Precinct 13. It's a very Carpenter-esque riff, but the monster, which we've been very careful not to show, catches people by surprise. It's not what they expect. It's a lot cheaper than what they expect. Um, but that hasn't really hurt us, and that surprise is valuable. The subtext of the movie might not be what you're expecting, um, and it kind of lingers. So what I would say is, yeah, if wipe the word best, I would say, out of your vocabulary. Um, the first time I want you to hear it should be if you win something that has best in it. Um, Now we'll get to awards later, but and hopefully so will you. But um, when you're looking at that page, I really want you to value creativity over doing the best cover that you possibly can. You know, I want to hear a new song. If I wanted to hear um, a song that I love and have listened to dozens of times, I'm just going to listen to that song. It's not a catch-all, but that's my personal philosophy. Um, I should note, as I think you mentioned, I do horror movies, not, well, I guess exclusively since I left Kent, but I have an appreciation for other genres. Most of the people who work on my movies got their start in the television minds of the agenda um, with comedy. I'm talking about horror because that's what I know, but I would say the more generalized film festivals I've been to, sitting through a comedy block or a drama block, the same thing applies. If you can do something different, you've already got an edge. Um, and ultimately, I would consider this an exploration for why you want to make movies. It's hard, it's pain. Um, I promise this talk won't turn into me telling you not to make movies. But if you're having a real hard time coming up with, I don't know what to do. I really just want to make movies like these other movies. Explore that. Maybe you're a director that can't write their own stuff, that shouldn't write their own stuff. You need a screenwriter. Maybe you're a writer, but you can't quite visualize director. Um, when I was in Kent, there was kind of this de facto belief that if you're a filmmaker, you do it all. Like, well, that's just how it is. Now, for better and worse, that's partly how I kept going. I would encourage you not to do that because most of the people there, you have a full department, you know a lot of people. I guarantee you know a very talented cinematographer. I guarantee you know a very talented director if that's where you're coming from. And I guarantee you, above all, if you're worried about your own screenwriting ability, that a good screenwriter. They're out there. Often those are the things that get overlooked. Um, strange as it is, that's always the first thing because writing is invisible, so it seems like it's not important. But I am a writer, so I'm going to really drill this home. So, you're writing a movie. Uh, the the agony and the ecstasy of low budget filmmaking, at least by my philosophy, is that there's a very hard ceiling the second you start writing. Um, I remember there were people in Kent who would write something or have an idea, and it would be leagues beyond feasibility. You know, needing crowds or a building collapsing, so on and so forth. And sometimes instead of saying, "Well, maybe we can't do that," they try it and they do it in such a compromised way. There's no impact. It doesn't land. What I really want to emphasize, and you could take this point through the entire process, but start writing with what you have. Um, thing about Beecher's Gate, that was Sam Scorefield, our producer. That shed was on his property, so we just slept in his house and filmed there for a couple days. Um, that office was his dad's office that he let us use. Um, things with the glowing green eyes. The high school in it is my high school. I reached out. They were, you know, I did. I guess I didn't ruin their video program when I was there. They very graciously let us come back and film. Um, look at what you have before you decide. I'm going to make a a contained thriller in a shopping mall. Unless you know your uncle is the manager of a shopping mall, you're not going to be able to afford a shopping. Um, look at what you have. Everyone knows someone who owns a weird business or has a cool field behind their house or has a cool house or basement. Um, you know, likewise, if you know someone who's good at making props or outfits, talk to them, figure out, okay, what can we do to make something different? What can we do to really fool people into thinking this movie's expensive? Um, you know, the monster in the Childish Thing was a thrift store for a coat, um, about 3 feet of drainage pipe, two black furry leggings, ping pong balls, and just a very short length of black fur fabric from Joann's that we just spiraled into fingers. Um, now, I could have lit it better, but that's beside the point. I'm not on trial here. Um, all of it comes back to what can you do? What can you do? How can you make it interesting? Things with the glowing green eyes. The rig for those, it was dollar store prescription glasses that we popped the lenses out of, and then we had green LEDs that we wrapped around like bale wire and just stuck out right in front of the eyeballs, far enough so that it didn't hit back on their face. Up close, it looked absolutely hilarious. But you know how you present it can fool anybody. That first shot across the parking lot that's in the trailer,
Yeah.
that was Wolf standing across that apartment complex in Kent. That was Wolf standing across the parking lot, you know, looking menacing.
Yeah, and from me, an unknowing person, I thought it was in post. You did some post-production work and
That's
I tracked it to his eyes, but there you
I
go. Just bifocals from the dollar store. That's all it is.
I've you know, I've shot myself in the foot on this before, but I will maintain if you can get it in camera, get it in camera. It might take
Practical.
you, yeah. And I'm not even going to be the person to say practical's better. No, practical's a tool, digital's a tool. They both have their uses. However, if you're making a movie for very little money, unless someone involved is, you know, fluent in After Effects, if not more, if not Blender, if not something, um, don't go too crazy with, well, we can fix this or we can fix that. All the green eyes we shot when we were there, as I said, it wasn't always a joyful experience. I turned to many people on set at the time and said, if I want to do a special effects movie again, shoot me. But you know, now I don't mind. Now it looks great, and that's what counts. Um, the real spirit, I would say, especially at this level, especially with college students, you're all trying to do the same thing. There's no reason not to be on the same team. I've met a couple people who are like you can see um, the weight of the world on in their eyes as they're hoping that a GoFundMe for a 10-minute short for $5,000, they're hoping the money comes in because they're trying to pay SAG equivalent rates to actors in the area and things like that. If you can do it, great. If you can get that money, great. Pay people. What I'm saying is college students or even, my friends, if everyone enters it with clear eyes that this is what we're doing, going to make this movie. None of us are making money on this thing. These are the days that we're shooting. If you want to help out, great. I'll give you some Little Caesars. I'll give you some chips. There will be water and Gatorade, etc. That's okay. Um, make the movie. What matters is when you've made the movie. Don't endanger anybody. Please don't do that. But making the movie is the thing. And certainly you can find people do it. Not maybe in 2020, but as soon as it becomes hygienically responsible to find people to make a movie, you can do it.
On that point, Jeremy, what's the highest budget you've ever had for one of your shorts, and how did you allocate that the most effectively? You think? Because I'm sure I don't. I'm just assuming I don't think you've ever used a Kickstarter or like a fundraising website. So it's just yourself. How much did you like scrape from under the couch cushions to create a short?
um, and I mean, this is because I don't crowdfund. It's
Yeah.
convenient. It's also a curse. I never have the number when I start, but I kind of know like this is what we need to get, etc. Things with glowing green eyes was probably the most expensive because of the lights and the foggers involved, and that was about $300. Um, and again, some of that is that we're fortunate, but that's what I'm hoping to emphasize. For instance, like we didn't have to rent a camera; we used Sam Pownell's camera, which he volunteered. It's not like I showed up at his house with a bat. And it was his baby. It's not, I would make sure he was okay with everything going on before I touched it. Um, most people have friends. If you don't have a friend with a camera, I know, at least in my day, there was a pretty robust rental place within Franklin Hall. Obviously, right now that's tricky, but even if you do need to rent a camera, so on Beecher's Gate, Dylan Lusk, who was the co-cinematographer with me, it was the week before we were going to shoot, and he'd said, "Can you use a jib?" And I was like, "Well, I can come up with a reason to use a jib." And he said, "Okay, cool," because he got a deal on it. He rented a lens for it because we used his camera at that point. He rented a special lens for it, and they had a jib for extra cheap. And I think together they were like $100 for a weekend because they charge you for one day over the week. And that was that. It's possible even at that same level you might not be able to get some of the effects in, but for $300 you should be able to rent a decent amount of gear. You don't need to
Yeah,
rent a red.
I'd
Yeah.
like to commend you on that though, because it looks from the trailer alone, it looks like it's a lot more than $300. The short as a whole, so the production quality is much higher, and I think you've used the $300 very wisely in whatever.
Well, thank you.
Just is it just the lights you're saying that you used it for, and just small stuff, the food for everyone? Is it because you?
I mean, a lot of it's the food, but the like I have two LED panels about the size of lunch trays, and that's what I've used for all the movies. That's all we had on Beecher's Gate and Childish Thing, and then for Green Eyes, Leah Nelson, who's a photographer, let us use some of hers. So I think we have four. That was for the woods because it was just pitch black otherwise. Um, but I mean, that's like even that we knew people that trusted us, and we didn't break anything. We were careful. Um, the fogger was probably the single biggest purchase because it's a bug. I think I have it in here somewhere, but it's a bug's an industrial fogger which is used for bug spray. and you light it, and it like heats up, and then you spray it. And Wolf practiced on it, and he got very good at using it. He became the fogger for the shoot. Um, but and that's it. I mean, that's more of an the intangible thing that I can't really teach in any kind of seminar way is how to shoot things to trick the budget to make it look, profound or whatever. I guess that shot across the parking lot in Green Eyes is a decent example that, I mean, that light was there. There's a street light. It's not as if we bought that street light. It was just looking at what we had, and I'm like, all right, if he stands in front of it, he's just going to be at this real skinny black shadow, and all you see are the eyes. That's pretty eerie, and that's how we did it. Um,
It's effective too.
for Beecher's Gate, the monsters are the same basic color as the shed. And a lot of people were like, man, where'd you find a shed that color? It's like, well, that was the color of the shed, and then we bought the sheets to match the shed. And now we look very smart. That's the trick is, do as little as possible and look as smart as you can. Please no one quote that. That sounds bad. But that is kind of the trick. You got to know what corners you can cut. And a lot of this, the only way to learn is to do it wrong many, many, many times. What most people here don't see is that on an almost weekly basis for 3.5 years, I made a video a week that died or was too long for its own good, or wasn't funny or wasn't startling, because I did plenty of horror things for the agenda as well. And it was an immediate feedback to learn, all right, I can do that, I can't do that. You don't have to work at TV2. I know I'm talking to KSUIF, but I know now, as an organization, you make more shorts. There's your opportunity. Even if you pitch a script to KSUIF and they don't take it, if you wrote it cheap enough, you can go make it, and that's how you're going to learn. The two hardest things to do, it's not lighting, it's not sound. I mean, please get good sound. We all beg of you, but lighting, touching the camera, none of it can't be learned. The toughest things in the world are tone and pace. And I don't know all the answers, but I have a strong feeling those are probably two of the quickest tells on whether or not a movie is going to fit a festival. Because Childish Thing was 29 minutes and played three festivals. Beecher's Gate was 25 minutes and played like 20 festivals. Things with the Glowing Green Eyes is 19 minutes and is on track to play at least as many as that, so long as I have the money to carry that out. But the trick, and I would hope anyone seeing this isn't like he's making it up. They don't feel that long. You don't sit having felt like you watched a full sitcom episode when you watch the thing about Beecher's Gate. Even Green Eyes, which is a more, I guess, thoughtful kind of story, it doesn't feel as long as 19 minutes. And that was something when we were editing that we were absolutely drilling that this has to be as short as we can possibly make it. But that decision, like all the other ones, starts the second you start typing. It's about a minute to a page, if anyone didn't know that. Watch that page limit. Eventually, your own tells. I write big. When me and Wolf write, we write big. I think we figured it was almost like 8 or 9 pages. So Green Eyes was like almost 30 pages, and we made it anyways because I'm like, I know that's not going to be that long, and it wasn't. But you same way, make things, mess them up, figure out what you did wrong. Get the people that you're working with, at least some of them got to be honest with you. Not that anyone's lying to you, but you need someone who's going to say, that dragged. That was a little too long. We didn't need this scene. We don't need to see the main character walking from each scene to the next. The name Dangerous Days came from kind of the first big movie I made in high school. Consider this a cautionary tale. I first saw Blade Runner at the worst possible time, which is when I was in the throes of falling in love with filmmaking in high school. And so I decided, well, gee, I better make my own Blade Runner as a high school student. Um, that already violates several rules that I've laid out if anyone wants. But I did it. I actually filmed some of it in Kent because my brother went there and we went around the streets. And at the time, I'm like, this looks like a big city. I turned
The
it in.
original Blade Runner too. The OG Blade Runner.
Oh
That's the
yeah.
one.
And Dangerous Days, for those not to know, was the working title of Blade Runner.
Okay.
And it's also the name of a great, like, 5-hour documentary about the making of Blade Runner that's worth watching. But
Wow.
so I made, I made my Blade Runner, and I turned it in. And of course, I got an A because everyone else it made a 5-minute movie. I think mine was 20 minutes, involved lasers. And I remember on the grading sheet, my teacher was like, great job, loved it, X, Y, Z. And at the bottom, he was like, there's a little too much walking. And I think about that all the time because that's one of those things that until you notice it, it's going to show up in a lot of early work. Where it's like, well, we need an establishing shot. Do you? Or can we kind of figure out by the set dressing, by who's here, by what's going on, that they're no longer in the old place, they've gone somewhere else. Ironically, it's also a problem I've come to have with the original Blade Runner. There's too much walking. But I digress. All of these things start making movies now, even in your home. You've got a phone. I'm not going to tell you that you're Steven Soderbergh and that's going to be the movie that gets accepted places. However, there are a lot of film festivals taking movies made in quarantine at home or wherever you can manage. But I am saying it still counts. You're still using the language. You're still playing with it. I was in my high school. I was the last video class to use mini DV tapes. If you dodged it, be glad. It is so much easier now. And I already knew that was so much easier than the people who actually had to splice their projects together. It's easier than ever. That said, it's also then easier to make something bad. It's the noise problem, as it were. You can look at a lot of famous directors' careers, and there's like a mythical jump that is seemingly no longer possible. Where, okay, well, they went to USC, then they made a short that was nominated for an Oscar, and then they just got a job directing movies. Or like, yeah, they made some promising shorts, and then Roger Corman hired them, and yeah, they made Octopus Monsters from Outer Space, and then then a studio picked them up. The issue is that that's not going to happen. And I know I've been rambling, but hopefully anyone taking notes hasn't blown out their wrist yet. There's a question. You're going to find this one way or another. A lot of people seem to think that short films are useless. I'll tell you right now, you're pretty much never going to make money on them. That's part of the reason I'm always concerned when I see a GoFundMe for a short film, because I'm like, that money's going nowhere. And if they didn't budget enough to cover like the eventual DVD copies or something, that hole's just getting deeper. But it's a calling card. I can tell you, if I had not made these short films, and if instead I had been toiling away on, the greatest feature film ever made, I would not have learned the 3-4 years of things that I learned. The movie I made would not have been as good as functionally any of the movies I have made. And because of that, because I had not kind of found an audience, and people got to know me and know what I can do, and I guess like it and come to see it, support it. I then couldn't really get that movie played too many places unless it's really good. And to me, it's like that's the next step. If in college you're making movies for yourself, you're messing up, you're seeing what happens. When you found a style, when you found a voice, when you know what you're doing, not that anyone knows what they're doing, but when you know what you want to do with your movies, then you start doing it with film festivals. But again, all of that comes back to the page. Know the ceiling. Know what you can afford, be it crowdfunding, be it anything else. Um, know what you can get away with. Only way you can figure out what you can get away with is by doing things and messing them up. I'm trying to think of a good example of a. I mean, the bad guys in Beecher's Gate were bed sheets. Um, we got to the location. And no one had put them on yet, and they were like, "Is this going to work?" I didn't know it was going to work, but I had a pretty good idea it was going to work. And then they put them on. We turned the light on outside, and people went, "Oh man, okay, it's going to work." Um, and that's what it is. It's just slowly getting the confidence and the tricks, um, to get control of your tone and get control of the pace and make sure it's entertaining. Something that's I would say of special interest to college students. You might not like hearing this. Student films are almost a genre unto themselves. I say this having made many student films. I made a 15-minute drama about uh, two college age guys who look up to a comedian, and the comedian dies, and then they get sad together for a while. I would wager almost every straight white guy in a film school has made a wise comedian short film. What I'm saying is get out of that. Learn to kind of notice what is the genre? What is everyone making? Because I guarantee you, once you're honest with yourself and you mess around with what you're doing, you'll find what stories you want to tell. And I guarantee you, they're not going to fit into that. I was making horror. The last movie I made in Kent was a 40-minute alien invasion movie called Exterminators. Wasn't good, however, it certainly looked different than a lot of movies, and that told me this is what I'm going to do. This is the kind of movie I like to make. I'm going to keep going that way. When you start writing with the ceiling in mind, think about what an audience would want to see. I'm not saying write, using an algorithm and saying, well, this was big on Netflix. Keep an audience in mind. Because that's one of those things that I kind of pride myself on in my writing, and me and Wolf on, is that we try to entertain first and foremost. We usually sneak subtext into these movies, but being entertaining is so often overlooked. I don't know necessarily what in favor of, but if there's nothing in a movie for an audience to latch onto, to want to see through, why are they going to want to watch it? Why are they going to want to program it? Why are they going to do whatever? You kind of do have to touch people. That could be making them laugh. That could be drama. That could be scaring them. But write as if what you're doing is going to be shown in an honest to God movie theater to an honest to God crowd, and you're going to be sitting in the back listening to every noise they make. If you've never done that, it's horrifying. The first time I had shakes when Green Eye was playing in front of the crowd, because I was so convinced that I had absolutely ruined that movie. The first
How
time
so?
someone laughed,
Just in the editing afterwards?
so Green Eyes, and I don't know if it comes through in the trailer or not. It has kind of a very fragile tone. I'm gonna say what the movie's about. So if anyone plans on seeing it fresh, I'm going to say it in 3, 2, 1. The movie is about depression. Now that we're through that, it's that, but it's also a comedy.
So you broke that fine line there. Is that what you were thinking?
I hope. I mean, I hope I stayed on the tightrope.
Yeah.
But
You got those laughs.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, oh yeah, this is not bragging so much as deep-seated relief that it got a lot of laughs when it premiered at Nightmares last year, and I could kind of breathe again, and that made me send it to more places, because that's an interesting example. Is if you ever watch a Marx Brothers movie, I'd encourage you guys to. What if there's an overriding lesson to anything I tell you today? Watch movies. you're making movies. You want to make movies. If you have a hard time watching movies, I would seriously evaluate that, because I knew people in the program when I was in Kent who wanted to make movies, but they didn't seem to have any language for it. And I'm not even saying like, oh, they'd never watched Jacques Tati's Playtime. How dare they? I'm saying like, you've never seen Goodfellas on AMC. Like you've never seen this, that, or the other thing. Not even the base language, like the silent films, but the class that learned from it. Um, you can learn things from Jurassic Park. It's all the same rules, and that's how you learn what you can get away with, what images affect you. Like that's what I mean. You won't figure out what stories you want to tell until you start watching movies. And it could be that you like the kind of stories that you're seeing, or you don't feel the stories you like are being told. That's kind of what we're seeing now, and it's wonderful. But for instance, just a quick thing like forget it. I'm getting back to the Marx Brothers. I don't want to spiral too far. Marx Brothers movies. If you watch a Marx Brothers movie now, after the biggest joke lines, you're gonna see a weird pause, like nothing happens for a little bit, and it's the strangest rhythm to a modern audience. And it's because they used to take them around and test them with live audiences, and then tweak the editing to fit exactly how long the laughs would go. They were made specifically for a live audience. Um, that's still the best test, bar none, of if your movie's working, of what works in your movie, of when people like it, of when you lose them, is if you have it in front of a live audience. And it's horrifying. If something happens that is not funny and someone laughs, it hurts. However, you're never going to forget that lesson. Likewise, if you hear someone really, really take it, I love it. I don't have too many moments like that in my movies. But like the first appearance in Beecher's Gate, just about every screening, if I listen close, you hear someone in the back go like, "Oh shit," and it's great because I'm like, "All right, I fooled them. They weren't expecting this. They're now in." Um, that is the high that I want everyone to chase. Awards are great. They are more or less a pat on the back. They're an organization. They're people saying, "We liked what you did. We want you to keep going." If you get accepted into a film festival, they're saying, "We like what you did. We want to show it to other people." Um, every step is another pat on the back. There is no end of the road. You're not going to go to any of these festivals. Like I'm not going to go to the next one, and then a rep from Blumhouse is going to say, "Congratulations, you get to direct Halloween."
The feature length of your short.
Yeah.
Expand it.
All of it is feedback. You're filling a theater, and the whole thing with a film festival is, and again, I'm going out of order, but hopefully this syncs. I promised you that I would organize, and I knew I wouldn't by the time I ended up here, but I tried. I swear I tried.
You're good.
The thing with film festivals is if you're accepted, your job has just begun. Make sure you send them things, but now you got to get people to go. Anyone who follows me who's watching this right now is probably nodding their head very slowly, because every time I get into a film festival, I spam it all over the place. Most of you are probably tired of this. I apologize. I'm not going to stop, because that's the only way. I mean, take it as a lesson. If you've not seen these movies, you know me. That's what you should be doing. You want people to see it. You want people to know this. Eventually, you get into a rhythm where, like, you'll get an email from a film festival saying, "I heard about your movie. I want to screen it. Can you send me? Can you send me a link on Film Freeway?" And that doesn't happen by you sitting there and saying like, "Well, I can't wait to go see my movie and then leave." Go to a film festival, talk to people. All of these lessons I've learned at relatively great cost to myself. The first movie I made out of college was Killer Deal. It was a comedy, about 14 minutes long, already a mistake. And played at Nightmares Film Festival, won Best Ohio Film. First out of the gate, and I made the mistake a lot of people make. I'm like, this is fantastic. I'm in. I didn't even know what the in was. I'm like, I'm in. It's great. Um, I then sent it to not. I didn't send it to Cannes. I'm not an idiot, but I am stupid. I sent it to a number of major festivals. Uh, a no from all of them, and it was like I'm thinking like, what are you talking about? There is a process by which you do have to decide, where is my movie going. Um, don't I get I'm not going to say it. If you really think your movie's got a shot at Cannes, don't let me be the one to tell you no. Um, just don't send it to the thing that there's a side Cannes event where they keep laptops and just play shorts on them. That doesn't count. Don't send your money. Don't say you played a Cannes. But look at film festivals when you do this, because again, you want to play for an audience as receptive as possible. Um, if you make a movie that rivals the Hostel franchise for sheer flesh rent a son, I don't know that the Cleveland International Film Festival is going to want to see that. I don't know that even a smaller general festival is going to want to see that. Now, if you send that to a horror hound, you might find the audience you're looking for. When you're figuring this out, use Film Freeway. That's the easiest way in the world. Go digging, look at past winners, read the reviews, read independent reviews of the movies that played at those festivals and won. You're not necessarily gaming to make a movie like an award winner, but you see then what the festival values. There are plenty that value specifically college students and the movies they make. There are many that value first-time filmmakers, and that's the game. Do they value concept? Do they really like a hook? Do they really like a short that you remember?
High concept.
Yeah. It's all in the research. It's all in the research, and that's when you get to the festival end. That's all it is. It's not hard. You just got to start looking.
Awesome. So just know your audience. That's a big part of writing the script and sending it out and getting an audience. Would you say that's like probably the biggest takeaway? Just know your audience all the time. Just keep that in the back of your mind while writing, while finding the festivals. Would you say that's one?
Um, it's tough because your audience is hypothetical, and you
Yeah.
also want to hope that your audience keeps getting bigger. What I would say, always be as entertaining as you can without destroying the soul of whatever you're doing. I guess be as honestly entertaining as you can, and keep in mind what audience might be the most entertained by it. Because I mean, there are people that will spam every horror fest from here to the moon, without looking at, well, what does this one like? What does that one like? Would they play something like this? Horror is a genre that is going through an overdue reckoning in terms of the folks in it, and what that means is, like, if you make a horror film, whether on purpose or by accident, that is misogynist, I would not submit it to a horror festival. Don't do it on purpose, but I would think twice about sending it to a festival dedicated to empowering women in the genre. It's like, and that's a slasher issue. That's a big slasher issue. But just be honest about what your movie is. If it's not a message movie, don't try to smash it into a message movie because there's a festival that's looking for socially conscious movies. Let it be. Make the movie as honestly as you can make it, how you want to make it, and then start shopping around.
We have one question here from someone watching, Mr. MK Allen. He says, "What's the biggest problem you've had uh, during the production on a short film?" Hey, what comes to mind, Jeremy?
I mean, on Green Eyes, our foggers died. That was something. Although, actually, okay, so Green Eyes was so fraught a production. The nice thing is, almost any one actor would not know that it was as hard as it was. But Footage disappeared from the school. We then tried to reshoot it, but then the actor's schedule, the day we were
Conflicted.
going to shoot it, fell apart through no fault of his own. So we ended up having to green screen it using footage that we shot. We also had to go back again to shoot another actor at the school. And then we were missing a piece of the costume, which then cost another hour and a half. Like, and we weren't supposed to be there that late, so we were just alone in the school after dark. It's that stuff. It's the small mistakes that add up to massive headaches. That's always what the issue is.
Yeah. Anyone familiar with your work, Jeremy, sees that we have one actor that is a mainstay, and that's Morgan McLeod, if I said that right. McLeod.
Nah,
My
did
bad
it
again.
again.
But he's usually in a lot of your works as the lead or a major player. How do you think that's a benefit of small budget filmmaking? Like, do you think college students should try to, if they find a good, solid actor, should they try to stick with them through some of their productions when they're starting out?
I think Morgan is a massive drawback. No. Uh, here's what I will say. I got tremendously lucky to end up working with Morgan on the agenda. We co-hosted together. We knew each other a little bit before that. So I got to watch him on a weekly basis act in various sketches and things. I got to bounce off of him. And that's a very strange and convenient way to get to know somebody, because not only could I see he was talented, we spoke the same language. We could riff off of each other and know that the other had us in case we fell. And I mean that's been invaluable through all of the movies, is that I have to tell him very little beyond what's on the page, and he knows what I'm doing because he knows the stories I like to tell, and he likes to tell them as well. Um, and it also helps. Morgan has great story sense. I can't think of a time he's had a bad suggestion or a suggestion in the wrong direction. We came up with the story for Beecher's Gate together, and he was invested the whole way. What I would say is, like, you, much like I said, a talented cinematographer, a talented screenwriter. Find talented actors. Another trick, and I would encourage everyone to do this: get to know them, go get coffee with them, watch them in something if you can. Write parts at actors. That was one of the biggest issues I saw regularly with people's movies in Kent. I mean, I felt the same thing now and again. Was that they would just kind of write a part and then see who could fit it, and that's the game. But in college, like filmmakers, everyone's green, everyone's still learning, so it's going to be a harder fit. Even if you get into the indie territory, you could, if you're not, don't have a big name, don't have a big budget, you're only going to get so many audition tapes. And if the choice is you cast someone that you're not quite sold on, or you rewrite a part to fit how you hear them talking, how you see them acting, that's an easy choice. And I would suggest you do that from the start. If there's someone and they don't necessarily have to be an actor. Now, I would refrain from doing that for like the lead of a movie. But like in Green Eyes, the sheriff in that movie really was not an actor. He was someone I knew through work and had expressed to me that he wanted to be in a movie. I don't do that for everybody, but I was like, okay, let's think about this. I knew he had a very distinct kind of gruff vibe to him, and I knew that he was perfect at deadpan. So I just wrote the part right over the plate. He did bring some dramatic heat to it during his sketch or his segment, but I knew he could say what Wolf and I wrote perfectly. And if you can get to that point, it's its own special effect. People are going to say, "Where'd you get this guy?" The mayor in Glowing Green Eyes asked to work with us after he saw Beecher's Gate. And I was like, well, all right, okay, we got to do this. We started shooting a different movie before Green Eyes. We shot for a day. It fell through. We spun that into Green Eyes. And Wolf and I then wrote a new script. And and I decided I wanted to work with this guy. And so we wrote it with his voice in my head. I'm like, I can see him doing that. Get to set. You just have to tell him what you saw. There it is. Um, and it is its own skill. If you know someone who's a casting director, that's beautiful. But also, I don't want anyone to think, especially at this level, if you don't have a full 3-minute credit roll of cast and crew, that it doesn't count. If you can fool someone into thinking that you did, you've won the game. But absolutely, actors. I'm not trying to make them sound like objects. I'm not Alfred Hitchcock here, but they're a resource like anything else. They are as much about production value as any set or light or cool jacket that you found at the thrift store. They're the ones that make it believable. After Beecher's Gate, there were a couple people who thought Morgan was approaching 40, and it's just because of his performance in that movie. Yeah, so I mean that's if anyone knows me and Morgan, obviously we were dearest of friends, but take that as um, take that as a lesson that's kind of where you can get if you and Morgan's now won awards for it if you understand each other as artists, and that's as much about talent as it is about communication. Wolf once said about the movies we make that they get made on good vibes and luck. And that's very accurate. Write that down. Anyone taking notes?
Quote that one.
The good vibes come from communication, from workflow. You will meet people that are wildly talented, and you're just speaking two different languages. You cannot quite bridge that gap. Um, I would say the more you make, the better you get at communicating and understanding, and then working things in. Um, But in some cases, you can get more out of an actor or a better performance out of an actor that understands you and that you understand them than an actor who's brilliantly talented but has their own idea and does not want to talk about it. And you can't bring them around on it. Find the relationships. Find people you like working with. No one has ever told us like, hey, people are getting tired of seeing Morgan. If you put a different guy in there, you play like no. If it's good, it's good. And if an actor's good, they can play many different parts, as Morgan has.
Yeah.
So it's all the same thing. It's finding people that you can work with, which is as much about making movies as it isn't. Hang out with them, do something casual. Is it easy to talk to them? Do you have similar tastes? Do you like what they do? That's rule one. When you go to film festivals, you're going to meet a lot of people. If you're doing it right, go to film festivals, mingle, be friendly. I would say the number one rule of film festivals that I have learned, perhaps not, perhaps I've not mastered it, but be somebody that people want around. Be pleasant, be friendly, be gracious. It's tough sometimes if you have a social battery, they can run out. A lot of these festivals have bars for that reason. You don't have to drink. Don't think it's an Animal House party to get to the top. But that's it. Be someone that people want to have around. There was a film festival in Eastern Pennsylvania that me and Wolf drove like 8-9 hours to because we were playing. And we both felt like we wanted to be there. We were nominated for best horror short. We won it. And our screening was the end of a Saturday night. It's a very small town. Everything closed around 9. It was 11, and there were a couple folks still hanging around from the festival. And we said, let's go to a diner. So we went to a Perkins. We hung out there for hours more, and a lot of the people that we met there are now dear friends on the festival circuit. A lot of them run their own festivals. Some of them like, you should submit. I saw that movie. I like that movie. You should submit. That's ultimately how a lot of it works. If someone likes a movie they see, they're going to want that movie. If they think people like the movie, if they think there's an audience for that movie, they want that movie. If they think you're good to have around, that you're a pleasant person to be around, you're cool to hang out with, they want that movie. It's as much about the movie as it is about you, as it is about what you do for the festival, what you do for the movie. Um, and that's that. I forget actually what you asked me. That got
Just
me to
about
this point.
Morgan. Yeah, just having that one actor
Yeah.
who you work with a lot, like Morgan. But also, you have that chemistry, like just like you said, you speak that same language with Morgan. And does that turn into improv sometimes with him throughout the script? And how does that, because the timing of a script and the length is so important, how does that, do you try to push against improv when with a short film script in particular because timing is so important in the festival circuit?
Well, I think it's important to define improv in this sense.
Just going off the
Um,
script and yeah, and making it
because
more
like
the actor's own.
if we did improv on a movie, it would be this line doesn't sound right that we're in the moment. This line sounded great when we read it in your apartment. Now we're in the middle of the woods and it sounds stupid. Um, then that's when you start riffing.
Yeah,
And most of the people on the movies I make, we all come from a similar background to comedy. So usually there might be a pitch session. It's what do we got? What do we think? Um, if there's a line difficulty, if there's this sounds clunky. All right, what's a calmer way to say it? How do you say this easier, more comfortably?
concise. Yeah,
Yeah. I've never really worried about it because to a point, if you write, I don't do pure comedies really anymore. If you write to and on the agenda there was pretty much a weekly sketch that we had a plot outline in our heads for and then improvised and we found it in editing. That's great training to tell you like, ooh, this is a tangent. This is going to take an extra 3 minutes. We don't need that. But if you're on set, if you've done your job, if you've written it tight, um, either there's not going to be much reason for improv, or if there's a little bit here and there, it can't hurt. Um, but again, that's writing. That's starting to know what it's a lot easier to avoid that pitfall if you write knowing what words sound like out of the actor's mouth. That like there's a line in Beecher's Gate. I think it's funny. Morgan still doesn't, and it's just because we said it so many times, it lost all meaning. It just didn't mean anything. It was a noise. But that'll happen sometimes. I don't regret it. It's funny, but um, it's just part of the process. I don't think improv is necessarily a bad thing. If you're changing plot points or if you're adding like bits to scenes, not just jokes, but whole things. All right, pump the brakes. Maybe you're running out of road here. Um, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. But I do think having that relationship with actors makes it a much less destructive thing should it happen. But like Glowing Green Eyes, for instance, that is a comedy. Wolf and I wrote it. I was pretty stern with most of the actors about like say the words. But then again, it's not like many of them tried not to. Um, just because we know like this is the rhythm, this is the punchline. If this line is said a certain way, not going to work. Um, and then that comes into editing because uh, if you know a great editor, great. The way I shoot things, once again, like many things I've told you, only to my detriment, sometimes to my glory. I only shoot what I need in my head. Sometimes I storyboard, sometimes I don't, but it's an agenda trick. Again, you've got 2 days to make 30 minutes of content. If you're shooting a fake movie trailer, you immediately have to know these are the shots I want to get. These are where I'm going to get them. These are the people I need from this hour on this afternoon. I shoot what I need. Sometimes it bites me, but it makes editing very easy, at least the construction of it. Um, but that also makes it easier on me if it's a comedy, and mileage may vary, because I'll hear the edit. I'll know like, all right, so this is what this guy said. Then we cut to this guy. Um, there's a line in the movie where the mayor tells that's a good improv thing. We were going to have a choir stand, like or just like a podium for the mayor, and then we didn't have one, so we found a music stand.
yeah.
Uh,
It's in the
and
trailer if anyone wants to take a
yeah,
look.
Yeah, if you want to marvel at the production value. And I was kind of like, well, we need to make this part of it somehow. We can't just let this thing be like, why'd they have a music stand? Um, so we had a two shot of the sheriff sitting down, kind of like pulled into himself, and then you have the mayor who's looking down at him because he's standing. I'm like, I don't like that, because looking down at him, it makes the sheriff seem like he's in trouble, and he's not. These are two guys relating to each other. So how do we do this? So I told the actor, as a bit of improv, like, ride it down, lean on it, and just ride it slowly into the frame. Um, there's your little bit of, there's your first moment of improv. He says, he asks why he's wearing sunglasses inside. Cuts to the cop. There's a beat, which I heard in my head when we were shooting it, and the cop says, "I've been crying lately for unrelated reasons." Um, I'm like, okay, that's a funny line, and I didn't know how we were getting out of it. And then as I was rolling on the mayor, he just grabs both sides of the podium and rides it back out of the frame. Was not written, and it was the perfect improv for that scene, and it fit the rhythm. That's a whole other road to go down. Like, how do you make comedy? If anyone out there is thinking that comedy is easier than any other genre, please think long and hard, because it is not. Uh, at the last film festival I did a Q&A for, I explained it, that if you make a horror movie, the first cut is always a functional horror movie. The timing might be off, but the scares are there, the visuals are there. The first cut of a comedy is just a bad comedy. None of it works if the timing's off. And so you have to sit with that and hear the jokes 1,000 times, praying that your instincts were right when you wrote them. And then you go to the screening where you're shaking until the first person laughs. This is the glory of filmmaking, specifically comedy filmmaking. But that's the process. The more you do it, you start thinking ahead to that screening, and you start thinking, ooh, do I introduce the monster this way, or do I start it with this wide, like a hard cut to the wide, and then feel everyone startled? Okay, yeah, they're going to love that. And then you get there, and then you hear it, and that's how you start understanding that audience that I've been telling you, like, you got to start imagining, and then eventually they're actually there.
Awesome. So Ethan has a question for us, and if anyone else in the viewership has a question, send it in, please. This is from, Ethan, he says, do you have any advice on how to develop attachment to the characters and plot in such a short period of time? So how did you manage to Morgan's characters in your work, because he's usually the lead of most of your shorts? How do you create that connection so quickly?
I think an advantage, and once again, I very recently violated this rule. I think it's easier to do the fewer characters you have in a script. You then have more real estate for them. I think the trick is to get across either their wants or their demeanor. And I don't consider this a hard rubric. I'm just thinking about what we've done. Because in all of them, Morgan very quickly, because he's the guy, there's very quickly a detail about him. Childish thing is that he sleeps through an alarm, and I think he has a hole in his sock. And when he wakes up, he checks the alarm and says that it's the crack of like 3 o'clock or something like that. That's very rote. Be careful about writing your characters waking up. It's very easy to mess that up.
Yeah,
We've seen it a lot.
for student films, especially.
There you go. But you got to put in a little flavor. Don't expect the audience to be in your head. Why do we like this person? They don't even have to be a good person. Why do we want to watch this person? Beecher's Gate, the first shot is over the desk. Morgan's out of focus.
The bullets,
and they're
right?
shotgun shells coming down.
Yeah.
we framed them like prison bars so that the audience immediately goes like, "Ooh, what's going to happen to this poor bastard?" And when we rack focus, he kind of says with a smile, "That ought to be enough for the boogeyman." And so we immediately get he's kind of this charming guy. He's funny. And in the following conversation, we not that long a conversation, a couple moves, we find out like he tolerates his boss more than he likes his boss. Um, he chews gum, which we ended up tying back in as a plot point because it's a great setup. Uh, and he's comfortable in his job. He likes his coworkers, but he clearly thinks that something's off. Green Eyes, he's late to a meeting. He's one of like 6 people there. He sits in the back unobtrusively. Um, he raises his hand when the mayor asks if there are any questions from the city and says, "When are we going to talk about the things with glowing green eyes?" It's in the trailer. You can watch the trailer and want to see more of this man because he says it so casually and so innocently, as if it's a raccoon problem. And there's immediately a hook there. I think it's as much writing as it is the performance because you can there's the Tarantino disease of making all of the dialogue like chewy and hyper specific trivia to establish who the people are. But really, no 2 people talk the same. No 2 people act the same. And the more you kind of don't stare at your friends, but the more you observe people and pay attention to the different mannerisms, the more you start to see like, all right, when you walk into a room and you pay attention to somebody, why are you paying attention to them? Don't say they're attractive. Everyone in movies is attractive. Don't write anyone in your script as being attractive. Everyone in the movies is attractive. We don't need to know that. But you're drawn to people. A tick of mine is the more I get to kind of know someone and be comfortable with someone, almost the less I look them in the eye. Like if we're sitting together and I'm just staring directly at you, like even when we did our first interview, we were in the room. I was looking between you guys. The more I get to know someone, the more comfortable I am. I don't look at them. I don't have to kind of watch them to see what they're doing. I just, I'll sit and I'll look out the window as we're still talking, and I know that they don't mind it because we've got comfortable. But that's even a tick. If someone's sitting in on some conversation, serious conversation, and they're watching a train go by, it's just little hooks. Because in a short film, you don't get much room for character development. That's just accept that as it is. You have to hit the ground running, and you have to look for these invisible little hooks. Just little questions. Why do I want to keep watching this guy? Okay, he's funny. He's mysterious. I say he. All characters. Please do more than just guys in movies. I'm thinking Morgan though. Why does he like? Why does he choose this instead of that? Childish thing. Morgan goes downstairs. First thing he does is steal a mint. And there's kind of a delay. Like he thinks about it. It's a shot on a bowl of mints. He sets something out on the table, walks away. Couple seconds, he comes back, takes a mint, and then goes. So already you see a little bit of tension within this man. It's nothing more complicated than candy, but there's already something to hold our interest.
Yeah.
Script Wolf and I wrote called The Other Poseidon Adventure, which we wrote because the original Poseidon Adventure doesn't include Poseidon. It opens in like a swaying ballroom, and you see like a grand chandelier, and then someone throws a shot glass necklace onto it, and you transition down, and it's just the worst like college spring break party ever in this very nice ballroom. And the main character is a bartender who she busts up a fight, and that she just clearly does not like anyone involved. And it's like 3 to 4 pages, and we already kind of know, all right, who are the idiots partying? Who's this person? Does she even like being on this boat, etc. Just look for ways to do it fast. Two of the most economical screenplays ever written are Back to the Future and Die Hard. Watch those movies. Pay attention to information. It sounds goofy, and maybe this is not the most romantic way to go about it. Screenplays and movies are information delivery services. It's a long way from Roger Ebert's definition as an empathy machine. But you have to think about what am I telling my audience? Not even message. What do I want them to learn from this scene that I need to know later? What don't they need to know? What can I cut? How do I say it fast enough? How do I hide it well enough? That's the trick of exposition. But it's all a game of getting the information you need across as casually and effectively as you possibly can without the audience knowing that you're just explaining something to them.
And that's what Die Hard and Back to the Future do,
I
very
would say
well.
Die Hard does a better job of telling you exactly who each person is with a line or two and just an activity. Die Hard opens with John McClane on a plane, being terrified of flying, and the man next to him explaining to him how to fight jet lag, or not terrified of flying, but telling him how to fight jet lag. McClane has a giant stuffed teddy bear, cares about somebody, cares about his daughter. As he's getting off, an attractive flight attendant kind of gives him a look, and he shows her his ring. So already this man is going to see someone, family related, has a bear, probably kids. He is married, although he did entertain this attendant enough to show her his ring. So there's probably something wrong. And that's one scene. That's like, okay. And that includes those mysteries I was telling you about. There's enough to make you go, what's going on?
Yeah, so try to be efficient with building the main characters of your short and give them little idiosyncratic motions so it builds out their character even more.
Mhm.
Like how you said, like you stare out the window when if someone you're talking to them, that's and your character chewed gum and that related to the end of the film. So just make them more human and not just 2D people. Uh, I don't see any questions right now from the audience, so I have one for you. Uh,
Mhm.
since you're at least in the past few years, you've been doing mostly horror. Do you find that as the most cost efficient way to make films? Because uh, even on the feature scale, like we see nowadays, we saw The Invisible Man. Like the budget of that was pretty low for a feature film, just like a lot of Blumhouse features. So, and they do films on a low budget. So, do you think that's reflective in short films as well? Like horror films are usually lower budget. Do you recommend that to the people watching and listening?
Um, I mean, horror has always been the purview of low budgets. You can kind of count on not too many hands the truly big budget horror releases, franchises, etc. Um, the Universal Monsters pantheon happened because Universal wanted to make some movies on the cheap, and they had a castle on the back. Well, not a castle, but a village. Um, it's important to remember that's where the roots come from. Which kind of leads me to my point is that if you've come to this uh, trying to figure out like what's the best genre to make to play festivals, I think you're already barking up the wrong tree. Horror fans, and I would take this to probably mean most genres, sci-fi, whatever, but like horror fans especially, they can kind of smell a fake. I say I'm among them, but you can kind of tell when a movie's been made by someone who hasn't really done their homework, um, who might kind of hold what they're doing in a little disdain, like they did it, but they're not keen on it. Sometimes Q&As confirm this. Don't make any movie at this scale, especially. If Blumhouse comes to you tomorrow and says, "Would you like to make Insidious 7?" All bets are off. Do what you feel is right. But if you're making these movies because you want to make these movies, do not look at horror or any genre for that matter, as some kind of like shortcut that oh well that seems to be what people like, so I'm going to make one of those. That's honestly how you end up with a lot of those identical shorts where you're like, I just saw this movie. Um, there was at one point I saw the I think it's Mike Flanagan's movie Hush on
Yeah,
Netflix, which is the
the
Deaf Woman.
Deaf Woman. Yep.
Yeah, I saw a short that was just that after that movie, like long after that movie, and I my only takeaway could have been that they saw that movie and they just thought this is great. I can do a horror movie too, because like how else does that happen? If you're educated in the kind of movies you want to make, which you should be, because they're the movies you want to make, it protects you from making generic movies, or it should. Um, there are a lot of slasher parodies out there, and you can kind of see, which ones are made by people that watch slasher movies, which ones are made by people who read reviews of slasher movies. Um, and it's tough. It's sometimes hard to tell, but like, don't go into anything thinking it's the answer if you don't want to do that thing. Um, drama to a point is cheaper. Comedy is cheaper if you're clever about it. Horror, there's always got to be some kind of threat. Might not be a monster, but there's always going to be a concept level that you might then have to put some money out for. Um, I've already explained our three monsters. None of them were that expensive. Now, how long keep going making inexpensive monsters? I don't know. Um, but don't. Uh, and you can kind of see trends. Like I've been to festivals where I saw a lot of movies where like um, a pretty easy effect to do is a throat slit. You just get a trick knife that has like the line of blood on it. Or if you don't want to do that, you just slather one edge of a dull knife and then do this and kind of rub it. Um, and like four or five in a row had that effect of like a killer going, oh, and it was. I mean, yeah, the person died, but I just saw it 5 times in a row. Um, that's familiar. They probably did that because it was inexpensive. It could be done. Um, and my takeaway would be like, well, I can't do that. I got to do something different. Uh, likewise, I mean, I've circled back a number of times now, but don't horror has its own festivals. Comedy has some of its own festivals. Sci-fi has its own festivals. There are I don't want to say most festivals are drama festivals, but every general festival has a drama section. Um, don't don't go into something thinking don't make a movie thinking that there's any kind of shortcut you can take, um, because that's just not how it's going to work. That's I knew of some people that started putting stuff on YouTube when we were still in school, based on news that like, oh, an effect heavy short was bought for $100,000 by Paramount to be made into a movie, and that I mean it's the same lottery. You know, one is not better odds than another. However, one builds you a reputation. One is just throwing pennies in a fountain and hoping something happens. Um, make what make what you believe in. Make it honestly. I guess that's the word for this. If you don't like horror movies, do not make a horror movie. Um, even if you like horror movies, that does not mean you have to make a horror movie. That just might not be where your creativity is. Uh, I know I couldn't make a straight drama if there was a gun to my head, and that's fine because I try. Um, figure out what you want to do, and that's about the best answer I've got for whether or not horror is the best low budget genre. It does lend itself. I've seen a lot of very low budget shorts, even cheaper than mine, that are great. Then I'm like, that's fantastic. I can't wait to see what they do next. But if the heart's not there, if the idea is not there, if they don't believe in what they're doing, it's going to feel generic. It's going to land, and then you're at square one because you've made a movie that now doesn't have the entertainment. It wasn't made for the audience.
And that takes trial and error, just like it took you, like
Mhm.
from your early comedy work and now you're doing horror. I don't know if that's through trial and error, but you've changed and adapted throughout your short career so far. So I'm sure it's going to take a while for people to find their language and how they speak to the audience and for themselves.
Mhm. I mean, I think comedy and horror are similar languages in that they're all rhythm.
Yeah, they're
Um,
on the same coin.
yeah, and it's all about setup, punchline. Um, the better you can hide the setup and the punchline, the better you're going to be at it. And you also then learn in comedy like horror, there are some jokes that would be the funniest thing in the movie, but also wreck the entire movie. Or you know, a sketch like, oh, that joke is hilarious. It destroys any sense of reality in this sketch, but man, is it funny. Can't use it. You know, it's ends up being a game of discretion to a point, and that's where the improv question comes back. You got to keep the reins in your hand, and you start getting better at knowing what you can let slide, what you can let go, a little bit that way, a little bit that way, without coloring outside the lines.
Everyone, I have one final question for Jeremy. So if you have anything else, type it in. And by the time we finish this one, we'll see if we can get to yours. But for everyone out there who's a student, you only have a short budget, small budget for your film. Let's say $500. If I if I give you $500, Jeremy, and let's say it's for the glowing green eyes, the things with the glowing green eyes, your newest short. I give you that $500. What is the most effective way to use that $500 in that short?
I take stock of what I've got. If someone is willing to use their camera and work with us, great. If I've got lights, great. I've got a mic. I've got, you know, editing software. Um, Obviously, if you don't have a camera and you have to rent a camera, that's it. You can't write without a pen. You can't make a movie without a camera. Um, I would think about what kind of, you know, and I guess I have to go horror again. I would think about what your wow is. If there's kind of a surprise in what you're doing, if there's a one great setting that maybe you could get if you know you put some cash in, um, I would be as judicious as possible and, you know, decide, still write it everything you have, and then choose, you know, you go to the thrift store, get props, choose one thing, maybe monsters, maybe fog, maybe both, um, that's going to take whatever your baseline is. You can make a movie this good and make it that much better. You know, use fog and everything. It's wonderful. Like, not a comedy, you know, that would be odd, but um, fog looks very expensive immediately. The green eyes look more expensive than they needed to be. But like, you know, we thankfully Leah lent us her lights, so the woods looked very well done. They looked fully lit, and like we had all kinds of people. If I didn't have those lights, I probably would have rented them because I knew we'd need them. That would push us over the edge. Um, you know, if I wanted to go farther, like if I needed to see a cop car, okay, well I would talk to a local police department if anyone knows someone. Like, can we use this car for a little bit? You know, is there a fee? Et cetera, et cetera. Um, Really, it would just be not gambling, deciding what you want to really push, building everything around it, and then using your money on that.
So it depends on the script and whatever's going to take it to the next level.
Right.
Awesome. So I don't see any extra questions. So it's awesome having Jeremy here finally after a few uh, mix-ups and a little pandemic going on, and we had to push it a whole semester. But we're very glad that we finally got to talk to Jeremy about low budget filmmaking. And where can we find your newest short or the rest of your catalog, Jeremy? Because
Um,
you said it's going to be playing at a festival. Is that an online festival where people can see that?
okay. Let me think, because you're now asking me. You're asking me a question about numbers when my brain is turned to mush.
No problem. Take your
So
time.
some of the upcoming places, festivals you can see with Glowing Green Eyes virtually would be Milwaukee Twisted Dreams, which is in early October. There may be a local chance next month in Cleveland, safely. You can see it. Um, I believe iHorror is going virtual. That hasn't really come out yet, but you can see it then. And I can't think of any hanging out there just yet. There will be plenty more. If you follow me on anything,
Yeah.
you can't miss one or more of my notifications.
Yeah. I follow you, and I, to be honest, I didn't appreciate your work until I actually went out and saw it on your YouTube channel. But after seeing your like animation and your pixel art, like your test footage, like I that really hits a spot for me, and I want to see more that you do now with. Oh, you have all your trailers on there. Where can I see some of your like past films that aren't in festivals right now?
We're kind of in between. A
Okay.
couple of them were available on different platforms, and then the platforms kind of collapsed.
Okay.
I'm looking into it.
Okay.
That
Let me
said,
know.
if anyone out there is morbidly curious, you can follow me on any platform at D-Day Films and message me, and I can send you a top secret screener link. Um, you can see all the movies that have been out and around on Film Freeway under my name. Um, that reminds me, if you're ever curious about any of the movies that I've made, and this is a tip if you're going the film festival route, for all of my movies, I've made a press kit, just a couple page PDF, has the poster, has the whole cast crew list, has a director's statement saying why I did this thing, um, and laurels and review snippets. It's always a good idea to make it for a film festival, for a film project, because it's another step of legitimacy, and it's also a convenient thing. Now, any of you who are curious can go read any of those press kits and say, that's not for me, or like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like to see it. Um, and again, there are so many topics that we only touched on. Reviews, that's a whole other topic. Um, if anyone would like to talk to me more, even if you want me to look at a script or something, follow me at D-Day Films on anything. Facebook, it's just my boring name. But you reach out. I might be busy, but I'm not gonna say get lost or anything like that. Uh, I know it's a process, and I just want to be as good of a resource as I can from what I've learned the expensive way, so that you don't have to learn it that way.
Yeah, so follow Jeremy on at D-Day Films everywhere, Twitter, YouTube, and also KSUIF at KSUIF on this channel and on Twitter. Um, I'm sure we'd be happy to have you back to talk about reviews sometime, just Jeremy. Or so uh, anytime in the future, we might be reaching out to you. So it was a great talking to you. It was
All
awesome having everyone here watching for an hour and 33 minutes. So thank you all, and we'll see you at the next speaker series. So have a great night, everyone.